What is up? It's your favorite podcast host, Sean Cudahy, introducing episode 20. Like I said in the last episode, I feel like episode 20 is a big deal. I don't know why. I'm like, yeah, 20 weeks. We got this. We are moving forward here at Room 9. We are growing. We are doing our thing. It is turning out wonderful. I've been enjoying every second of all the hard work that has been going into this. I feel like I'm doing something productive with my life for the first time in a long time. It's a beautiful thing. So there. I'm not one of those people that go around and talk about how long I've been sober for, but I do want to talk about this. April 12th, that would be a year clean. And what I love about it is, I was thinking this morning as I was making my bed, I have made my bed every day since April 12th. For almost a year, I've made my bed every day, and what a difference that makes. It is insane when you can fail at everything else in life, but if you come home and your bed is made, it is an awesome feeling. And that's where it all started for me, making my bed every day. Every day, getting up, first thing I do is make my bed. Unless I have to go to the bathroom, then I'll do that. But that's just something, a little, something to think about. Is what our lives are like inside of our rooms and our houses, and that is usually a good representation of our mental state. And you can kind of see that if you start observing that. So I encourage you guys to get up and first thing you do, make your damn bed and start your day with that. And keep organized, keep clean, keep everything up around you, and that'll also help you keep your mental state up. So there you go. Anyway, episode 20 is coming up. I sit down with a friend. I've actually known her for a long time now that I'm thinking about it, probably since high school. I worked with her at Tops, which is a grocery store, and it's pretty awesome to sit down and just seeing how this woman has grown and has completely changed. Emily Banko, or as she is now goes by the name of Sikhona Banko, which Sikhona means, I can remember this, I am here. So, and she explains a little bit about that early on in the episode. I'm pretty sure that's one of the first few things we talk about. And that's, there's not much to say other than, she's really into yoga, and she's a pastry chef, and she's just very into the holistic things. So that's why I thought this would be an awesome episode. She mentioned slightly just how she used drugs and to kind of escape and not face life and other things like that. We go into that. This is an amazing episode. There's so much to take away, so be sure to listen to every second of this episode. Emily is an awesome person, and you guys will love it. So other than that, get to room9podcast.com, go to our contact page, fill out a form so I can see who's continuously listening to us for the old analytic purposes. And that would be awesome. And there's also the old support page where you can help us with financial things, as in advertising and other such thing as that, website fees, RSS feeds, domain fees, stuff like that, equipment stuff, all needs to be upgraded, all those things. It would be awesome. Anything helps. It's my least favorite part of doing any of this is asking for that, but it's a necessary part. And it could also help advertising where this message of hope and love can get out to many more people. So without further ado, episode 20, Emily Banko, Sikhona Banko, whatever you want to call her. She's awesome. It's a great episode, and I hope you guys enjoy. All right. Emily, what's going on?
How's it going?
It is going well. It's awesome to see you again.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for having me here.
I'm trying to think the last time I've seen you. I was at Eden Street.
We are dog ears.
Oh, yeah,
coffee.
That's right. That's right. So that was when I tried to get clean on my own.
Yeah.
That's right. Okay. Yeah, I think I lasted like a month with that.
Yeah. Well,
I'm trying to think if I was actually clean or just pretending to be clean when I seen you.
I think you were pretending.
Was I? Yeah.
Probably.
I'm trying to remember what time that was. Because, let's see, I got or everything kind of came out in January. So it was from like January to like beginning of February-ish.
Yeah.
I probably wasn't even a full 30 days until I was like, fuck this.
Yeah.
And threw the towel in and gave up. Which is funny because I tell everybody so much of that was I dealt with not using, but I didn't deal with any guilt or any shame or any other emotions. I just wanted like everything to be swept under a carpet. Mm-hmm. And all right, let's not talk about this and let's just go on. And obviously, you know what that does. That just builds up and builds up. And finally, the only way I could get rid of that feeling was using again.
Yeah, exactly. It's super important to allow whatever you're feeling to come to the surface and be seen. You were just talking a little bit about how you were trying to do it alone and how community is so important in our healing process and being around people who can see us and hear us and understand what we're going through. That's super important to have that.
Yes, it is. That was one of the main things I got out of actual rehab, was having other like-minded people who were struggling with the same situations.
Yeah.
That were around you.
Yeah.
But I asked you to come here today because I know you are extremely into the yoga, the more holistic things, and I thought this would be an awesome episode for that.
Yeah.
And you actually have gone through an experience where you don't even really go by Emily anymore.
Right.
That's
exactly.
correct.
Yeah.
And tell me a little bit about that, like that whole situation, how that came about.
Yeah. So I feel like I went through a dark night of my soul before I moved to DC, and I was in DC for like 8 years. Felt like 10 years, but 8 years roughly. And we knew each other before I moved away.
You're probably like high school at the time, right?
Yeah,
At
I think
Tops.
we used to work together at Tops and used to, go up to Canada and have all of that crazy Canadian fun. So I saw myself spiraling down a path that I didn't want to be on anymore. I'm in the restaurant industry also, so there's lots of drug use, there's lots of alcohol around there.
That's an understatement.
Yeah, understatement for sure, but I want to respect the people that are in that industry too. Not everyone is like that.
No, that's true, yes.
So I just saw myself getting into a space where I was out every night up until 4 a.m, using cocaine to keep myself awake so that I can go and work doubles, And I just knew I was suffering. I came back from living in Italy, part of my culinary training, and reached a depression because I knew how I wanted my life to feel. And then I came back to a space where it was like, this is not how I want it to feel. So I moved to DC and kind of started a process that I didn't really know that I was starting. Just connected myself with a lot of people. And in 2017, I ended up going through an ayahuasca ceremony. And through that, it just helped me shed all of these old habitual patterns that I was living, these feelings that I was feeling, and kind of rebirthed myself into the name of Sikhona, which is an ode to everybody that was around me that showed me who I was as a human, showed me the light and what I was capable of doing and the support system. And the name actually means I'm here. So for a long time, I just hid myself. I hid my power. I hid my voice. I hid my desires, my dreams, and just kind of went through the motions of living this like very low suffering sort of life. And, so when in 2017, when I did that process, it shedded just a lot of stuff. And I mean, I'm still human. I still have things come up, but it's through yoga, through eating better, through meditation. I've been able to cope with different things. I have a strong community through my yoga community that we are in contact with. Anytime you need them, they reach out, or I reach out to them, and there's always somebody there. Facebook and Instagram are actually like very useful tools to stay connected with people who are a strong support. Yeah, so that's kind of the short-winded version of my life up until now.
It's kind of very analogous to how the recovery community works, in the sense of staying connected and having that group of people around. On this show, I think I wrote a blog on it. I don't know if I did an episode on it. No, I did do an episode on kind of just how there's so many different pathways to take in recovery. And I've made sure to really emphasize, because I sat down with the dude and we talked about, MAT, which is medical assisted treatment, and different ways. There's Suboxone, there's, right now you can get medical cannabis as well now for opiate addicts. So there's so many different ways, and everybody has their opinion on it. And I very much I'm at the point where I'm just, if it works for you and keeps you clean and helps you get your life in order and continuously helps you to work on yourself, then that's what works for you, and that's awesome.
Yeah, and that's like a really great thing to put out there, because I see a lot of people that's like, you have to be this way. Like even in the yoga community, if you're this, you have to be this, Everyone's labeling in a sort of like societal standpoint of like, oh, you're an addict, so you have to do this thing because you're that. And we're all individuals, right? So we all have our own process. We all are on a journey, but on a different path. And like you said, every person has their own way, or things that work for them or things that don't, Alchemically deep down inside, whatever we have going on, not everything is going to work the same.
It goes back to we're so much the same, but so different. Mm-hmm. And every little experience you've had, since a child has trained yourself. You've trained yourself how to react in certain ways, how you take certain things, from your environment to everything else, the decisions you make, and everything else comes down to, we're all different pretty much on how we're going to react to something, how we're going to do something. So if somebody over here takes the 12 steps and has to follow them in a very strict, ritualistic, dogmatic sense, and that works for them, that's awesome. Mm-hmm. But, I mean, even for me personally, I'm not a crazy AA. I do 1-2 meetings a week, and it's usually even just to take people out there. Mm-hmm. I've gone more towards the refuge recovery and doing the more Buddhist kind of way as well, and get into that. But it's just so different for all of us. And I guess I originally brought it up because you mentioned ayahuasca. Mm-hmm. And some people are going to hear this and they're going to be like, oh, that's a drug, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And everything else. And for some people, they probably shouldn't do that. They should probably never even think about going to do that.
Absolutely. Absolutely not.
For other people, it works. It can change your life and how you use things and how you do that. Because I can already hear people listening to this and being like, oh, no.
Right. And and I know, and I'm very mindful of the fact that there's multiple different people that are on different paths that are going to be listening to this. And yes, ayahuasca is not for everybody. Yes, ayahuasca is a drug, but also food can be a drug as well. Mm-hmm. Sugar is one of the most addicting foods that we intake in our life right now. So it's, how do you define a drug? In the shamanic tradition, ayahuasca is actually it's a deep spiritual medicine, but it does have alchemical process, and it's not for everybody. I've seen a lot of people in ceremony suffer because they're not ready for it, or they're not supposed to be there and they don't listen. But yes, not everything is going to work the same for everyone.
Yep. Yeah, and that's exactly why I kind of wanted to emphasize that early on before people are blowing up my...
Yeah.
I say people are blowing up my stuff like I have 100 million followers or something right now, but...
Yeah, but there's enough people, you're making a difference in one person's life, If it's one person, that's what I always... as I teach yoga, it's sometimes the room is full, sometimes there's only a handful of people, but it's the people that need to be there that is going to listen and that are there that, need to hear our information. So, yeah, that's who needs to be there at the perfect time. Yeah,
but that's an awesome experience. And then to go as far as changing, you have a new name. And I guess taking it into a Christian terms, it's like being born again.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, absolutely. And all of these, a lot of things can carry over. There's a book called... Breathing Underwater, it's called, by Richard Rohr, but he is a Catholic priest, but he found unconditional love by watching people come in and out of his church in New Mexico during AA programs. So he has actually written that book about how the 12 steps in Christianity and religion correlate together, and how that things may be perceived as different, but at the core of it, it's all kind of the same, of how do we come back into being true to who we are, being our authentic self, and also being kind and compassionate towards one another and towards ourselves too, and forgiving ourselves for the things that we've done, forgetting other people that have hurt us, and how do we come into terms with who we really are deep down inside. That's the self-forgiveness thing is unbelievable, because as I was telling you before we hit record about me being in jail and people have heard this before who are going to listen to me say this, but I was at this mental crossroad of either I can go to the left and stay in self-pity and continue to get out and use and be alone and lose everything and lose all my connection to everything else in this world, or I can go down right and learn to forgive myself and accept myself. And it's frustrating because you want to be able to give people this recipe that they can follow step by step and learn to forgive themselves and love themselves and accept themselves. But unfortunately, it's not how it works. Yeah, one of the deepest things, though, to forgive myself and the things that I've done in the past is doing a little bit of mirror work and actually looking at yourself in a mirror. Looking at yourself in your eyes. Literally in front of a mirror, looking at yourself and saying, I love myself, I forgive myself, I'm at peace with myself, I love you, I forgive you, I'm at peace with you. And if you repeat that over and over and over again, I remember having an experience of doing that. I was outside, I was working at a restaurant that had a farm attached. And after my shift, I would always just go and sit out in the farm. And I was just going through a really rough time, and a lot of emotions were coming up on, relationships and different things. I'm not really sure what I was going through at the time, but I went out there and I brought I brought my phone. If you don't have a mirror, look at your phone, flip it to selfie mode, and literally just stood there and, around nature and listening to the birds and things, and said that. And I had this huge heart explosion and just started bawling, and not knowing, really, sometimes you don't really know why you're crying, but it's like this massive release, right? This massive release of something that you were holding on to just was like, okay, I no longer need this. I no longer need to hold on to this anymore.
Yeah, that's a beautiful experience. I've had many times of, why am I sitting here weeping? I don't even call it crying sometimes. It's like deep weeping.
Right.
And that has been an unbelievable tool.
Yeah, it's like grief. And, and I think in our society, we don't give ourselves enough time to grieve, especially for males. It's always, oh, you're crying. Why are you acting like a girl? Right? And it's like uncalled for. We're humans. Everyone needs to cry. Vulnerability is a very powerful thing. And even for girls, like if you cry too much, oh, you're over emotional. And it's like, or I'm just sensitive and I can feel things. I think Serena Williams just did that Nike, the commercial about that, about how if like women act out, then they're deemed as different in society and they're looked at as over emotional and they're crazy and different things. But yeah, you can watch that. Look up that.
It's a Nike commercial?
Yeah, it's a Nike commercial, but just about how people perceive, like how society perceives everybody, I think that is one of the reasons why a lot of people become addicts. I know that's like one of the reasons why I became, using everything that made me not want to feel, because I felt like I had to fit in, and I was always told that I had to do these things, and if I didn't do these things, then I, wasn't worthy enough and I wasn't good enough. You always heard, oh, you're doing great, but, and it's like, okay, well, this is who I am as a person. Even still, I hear that, but I just have to like push it back and be like, okay, that's your idea of who you want me to be. Who I am is this, and how do I make you feel? That's how I always tell people now. How do I make you feel? Am I making you feel like shit? Am I being rude to you? But like, how come this, whatever it is I'm doing, whatever it is that I'm doing, why is it making you uncomfortable? Because a lot of the times this uncomfortableness is not coming from me, it's coming from somebody else.
From somebody else, yeah. Which, man, you hit a bunch of awesome points there. I want to go back to the mirror thing real quick. Because essentially that's what I was doing in jail, with the exception of having a mirror. But I've learned, like, I started paying attention, and I noticed, like, if I knocked over a drink, the way I would talk to myself, like, you stupid ass. Like, and even sometimes in a joking manner, in a sarcastic manner, you're still saying it. And I've learned if you say something enough, your ego starts to identify with it, and you start feeling like that's who you are, and that's what you are. So what I started doing was, every time I'd catch myself in crappy talk, self-talk, I would stop and totally reverse it and start talking to myself positively. But I'd do the but it would go to, you deserve love, you deserve forgiveness, you deserve acceptance, like over and over and over again. Yeah. And eventually I would catch myself immediately before the thoughts even came anymore. Like, it's all right. It's okay to make mistakes. It's okay to do this. And you deserve all these other things.
Yeah. And I often find that instead of speaking to ourselves in future, or in the future of like, oh, well, I deserve something, to be like, I am love, right? I am this, I am that, awesome and point, that will help you feel that, instead of like, oh, I'm striving to become something. No, in this moment, I am love. There's other things that I'm a whole being, but a part of who I am is love.
Is love, yeah.
Right? At the core of who I am, I'm made out of love, right? So speaking to yourself in the present of what you are in that moment
is a necessity. It's such a necessity, because you see so many people who hurt from not having any, feeling like they don't deserve love, they don't deserve acceptance or forgiveness. And it's so hard. And like I said a few minutes ago, you just wish you could give people the recipe to just follow it. All right, now you got it. But as we've talked about also earlier, is every one of our journeys is so different that it doesn't work that way, unfortunately. And you have to figure that out on your own. I'm trying to think of the Zen quote, something along the lines, I'm going to butcher this, like if enlightenment was easy, everybody would tell their brother, meaning in the sense you have to go through a lot of darkness and a lot of crappy things and tough times in order to come out on top, in order to come out with these, these attributes as far as self-love is concerned.
Yeah, for sure. Ram Dass always says, if you think you're enlightened, go spend time with your family.
Yeah, that's right. I've heard that one too.
Yeah, that one's always a good one because it's like, the family always ends up triggering something bigger.
I'm officially changing that to, if you think you're enlightened, go stay at an Oxford house.
Right?
Oh, man. I've had some fun times at this Oxford house over the last few weeks. But to touch on something else you brought up, because that one little section, you said so many awesome things. You mentioned vulnerability. And to me, vulnerability is like the number one key in recovery in order to be able to continuously stay on top of yourself and to stay clean, in order to open up to whoever it is, whoever it may be, everyone, and just be like, here, these are my flaws. These are the things I failed at, but here is my beautiful things. Here is these awesome things that I have to offer as well. So I've very much gone on. I think so many people have heard it, the Brene Brown TED Talks, which I remember listening to 7 or 8, 9, it could have been 9 years ago that first came out. And I remember first listening to it, and that's actually was one of the biggest things that freaked my now ex-wife out. When I just became this trying to be open and vulnerable, and she was like, whoa, I did not sign up for this. I remember that was one of the things that really put a wrench in our relationship when I started doing that. She was like, I just want to watch the Bills game. I don't want this open guy anymore. So that kind of freaked her out, but it's such an important thing to be able to, to show your fragility.
Yeah, and to be honest, to be honest with the fact of like, this is how I feel in this moment. This is what I'm going through. This is what I have done. This is what I'm working on becoming, right? And being really open in that fact of that, being super open and giving yourself opportunities. Like, I remember listening to the Brene Brown talk when I was in a restorative yoga training, and it just rocked everybody to the core because, we are always hiding our emotions, like coming back to the emotional piece. If you're too emotional or you're not enough or whatever it is, you have to be strong. But giving yourselves opportunities of stillness, of actually letting it loose. And we're in a society of constantly doing. Like, in order for us to be successful, we constantly have to do and do and do and do. But being is just as important. Allowing yourself an opportunity to lay down on the ground and breathe. We talked a little bit before we started recording on meditation, and that's an opportunity to feel through whatever it is that you're feeling through instead of trying to push it away. Being still and allowing it to come up so that we can see it, and then releasing it in whatever manner is appropriate for us, right? So whether it's journaling, whether it's singing, whether it's poetry, I feel that having a creative outlet is super helpful in healing process. I've been very lucky enough to be a chef, and that's my outlet, and as well as my creative process too. And it also pays me money, which is nice. That's definitely a plus. Always a plus, right? There's lots of starving artists, is what they call them, but being able to, have that creative outlet for me, but also have this opportunity of practice. We talked a little bit about ayahuasca before, but the biggest thing that people teach you after you go through those ceremonies is to continue to meditate, because meditation is where you're going to stay connected to the experience of what you had when you used the medicine. Some of the greatest experiences, spiritual experiences I've had is through meditation. And my yoga teacher, Sri Dharma Mitra, I don't know why I said right now, but my yoga teacher, Sri Dharma, he talks about, whenever you use a substance and you reach a specific state of consciousness, there's darkness behind it. But being able to do it by yourself is this freedom of being like, oh, whoa, I did that. I did that, and I'm able to continue to do that, and I don't have to pay for it. It's absolutely free. Which is awesome. Yeah. Like going back to before we hit record, I shared with you, and I'm just going to say it again, so it's on recording, when I was in jail and how I was towards the end of my 6-week stay there, I think probably the last 3 weeks, I was meditating like 3 hours a day. And I came to that point of like feeling that in Buddhism, what they call the void almost.
not that there's nothing there, but there's just no labels, no, conceptualizations of any kind of language or anything else. It's just you, and it's this space between your feelings and your thoughts and your emotions. It's just like peaceful and blissful, and ineffable is probably the best word I can use to describe it.
Yeah, nothing else matters.
Yeah, and it was just something that showed me like, wow, I can actually do this on my own. Mm-hmm. Because I'm a huge Terrence McKenna fan, and anybody who knows Terrence McKenna, they'll understand what I'm going to say, because I was always... One thing I never did was take, as much as I've abused every drug, when it came down to LSD and mushrooms, there was always intention when I went into it. I always had a point of, all right, how am I going to grow from this? Which is funny, because taking LSD and mushrooms went out the window when my heroin addiction was full blown. I was like, I wouldn't even dare. I know what it's going to tell me, and I'm not going to deal with that. But you do find a certain sense in a lot of ways. You find that those drugs, if you go into them with attention, can help you as an individual and grow. But it's important, I think, what you said, which I think is awesome, that you can do it yourself. And I remember, speaking of Ram Dass, he always talked about his guru. Trying to remember his name. But,
Karoli Baba.
There we go. And he talked about how he ate the whole bag
of them.
Was it 8 of them? Was that 8 hits of acid? And Ram Dass, I was just waiting. I think Richard Alpert was his name, right? Ram Dass, yeah. And he was like, nothing happened. And I remember him saying, it's in you already. You already have that power to do that. And I always thought, like, yeah, that's a lot of work, though.
It is. It is.
To get to that point,
yeah. It is a lot of work, but it's also, like, so rewarding, And it ends up not becoming work when you just realize that, like, you have to do it. You just have to practice. You have to show up to yourself every day. And it just becomes, when you start doing it every day, it just ends up becoming part of who you are. Talking about the Das, tradition, I was lucky enough to sit in a training with Krishna Das, who was also the same teacher as same student as Neem Karoli Baba. And he also had, a long line of addiction things.
Really? I never knew that.
Yeah, he wanted to... He was actually in Blue Oyster Cult before Blue Oyster Cult was Blue Oyster Cult.
Really?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And so he ended up going to India and finding his teacher, and he was singing there. And so now he goes around the world and sings kirtan as part of his practice. He always talks about when Neem Karoli Baba died, about how he reached a state of darkness again. He started using again, and he went into his family's house in India, and they just looked at him and was like, you're never going to do that again. We know who you are, and you know who you are, and you're just never going to do that again. And that was his final moment of stopping doing that. And it just comes back to the past, or to the point that healing is nonlinear. That's what a lot of people think. People think that life is linear too. It's like, oh, I'm going to take this step and it's going to be this glorious thing. But sometimes we have to, not that we have to use again, but we do have to go back into some dark moments in order for ourselves to release them. And that's the biggest takeaway from my own journey, is that there's some things that I have to go back into sometimes, and it keeps coming up. And the things that keep coming up is because I haven't dealt with them.
You got to deal with it. Yeah.
I haven't dealt with it fully. So, yeah.
And a lot of people would rather not deal with it. And I think that's why you see, not even addiction with drugs, but shopping addictions, or binge watching Netflix all the time, and just constant distractions, because those things pop up in our minds, and we know we should be changing them and working on them, but we don't.
Yeah.
And we avoid them somehow and want to run away from them.
Yeah, we're in a very addictive society. Especially, we live in a country that's the most obesity rate in the world. Because we're addicted to food, right? And food can be an addiction to not feeling. And it's important when we go through these processes, I feel like, that we do end up, what am I trying to say? Oftentimes I see people be addicted to something, and then they become addicted to something else, as a part of not wanting to deal with the addiction.
What keeps popping up,
right? So getting to the root of what it is the most important thing. And getting to the root comes from, like you said, different paths and different variations. It's whether it's therapy, yoga has been my therapy.
Yeah, whatever it may be.
Whatever it may be, right.
Writing music, whatever it is.
Going back to that creative space.
Yeah, going back to that, you have to come up and deal with it. And that's where that kind of that quote before, if enlightenment was easy, everybody tell their brother. It's like you have to go through those crappy things, all those shameful things, those guilty things. Maybe even maybe some people have to deal with being molested as a kid. Like you have to go back into those moments and be able to go through it and come out on top. And that's not easy. That is probably the most difficult thing to do. But it's a necessity in order to come out and if you want your true freedom as an individual. And that is not fun. A lot of people don't want to do that.
Right.
And really, because I've seen it, especially being in rehabs. There's so many, we're all just so damaged, and you have us all under one roof, and it's so difficult for people to go through and do that. And some people, were hurt so much more than others, and it becomes such a difficult thing. But man, it's one of those things you just want to give people the courage. All right, you can do this. You can go through it. And
I think, and keep telling people that, though. You know what I mean? Like anyone who's going through a time of suffering, like just reminding them of the fact that they're powerful and that they're strong enough to get through it.
It could make the difference.
It could make the difference, just planting the seed that you are that and letting it go, because the work is for them to do. And everyone has their own karmic path. And some people have to go through it, and that's the real work. Is we can't do the work for other people. We can do the work for ourselves and with the intention that it's going to help everybody, because it will. Every person that we come into contact with will be affected by this new kind of enhanced, upgraded version of who we are and the stories that we tell. But just keep reminding people that they're strong enough. And then, hopefully at one moment things will break. It will break. Yeah. But everyone has a path. Everyone has their healing path, their life path, that which they want to do, but you can't feed somebody either. You can just hold space for somebody who's going through a hard time and be compassionate and open and loving and lead them to the resources that are available for them. And then they can do what it is that they want with it.
Yeah, I kind of always use the analogy of like we're all, and I use the word alone very loosely here. We're all alone on our path, but we cross each other on these paths, and we're there to help each other as much as we can. But then you continue on. And that's, I think, such an important thing to do is everybody you come across to be open, and going back to vulnerability, open and willing to share everything you have learned and all the mistakes you've made and the ways you've come over and corrected these mistakes, and be able to share those with everybody else is so important. Because some people, I feel, like to just, all right, I did this, and don't spread it to other people. And I think that's equally as important.
Yeah.
As to being open to receive it all. But switching gears a little bit, I want to talk a little bit about yoga, because that's something that has helped me just even physically, more so than, spiritually. I remember I got to Horizon Village and thought I was like 22 again, and started trying to play basketball and doing all these things. And the first time I played, I think I pulled a muscle in my back, which had me out for like a week. I forgot how bad my knees were and my joints. And it was the point where like I would run and then I could barely walk after. Like they were just so bad. And I started doing yoga, and that completely, my knees have never felt better than anything else. So that's kind of a physical sense. I think it's a no-brainer. But how do you feel as far as like a spiritual thing where yoga really comes into play?
Yeah, from a spiritual space, it's a surrender to whatever higher power you want to believe in. If it's just believing in yourself, from a physical stance, yoga is so multidimensional, just like our body, just like this healing process. It's very focused just on physical in the westernized world right now, but it gives yourself an opportunity of focusing in on your breath to bring yourself into presence. To bring yourself into a space that, like, I'm going through the motions. I often think about the asana practice as, like, different challenges that we have to come up with. Some of the poses are super easy for certain people. Some poses are really extremely hard, but it's continuing to show up to that and to continue to work through it and with it rather than against it. That's the biggest takeaway that I have. I think the easiest way to explain how I've come into practice yoga. When I met Sri Dharma, though, it just reached a different space of like, I am alone, but I'm also connected to everything. There's a portion of who we are inside that's connected to everything. And I don't want to get too gaudy or whatever, but, but there is that connection that we're always, even though our physical presences might be in a space that's alone, we're never really alone. There's always somebody that's willing to help. And there's also just a space inside of us that's always speaking to us. And it's whether that's listening to your breath or listening to your heartbeat. Like there's a intuitive space that's inside. And the practice of yoga is releasing all of the mind stuff, right? Releasing all of the clouds inside of our mind so that we can actually see that. And addiction just clouds our mind. Overeating clouds our mind. There's lots of different things that can cloud our mind. But how do we free and clear up our mind so that we can stay like balanced and true to who we are?
It's trippy when you start thinking about. There was another TED Talks that I watched. Jeff Lieberman, I think his name was, and he kind of did the whole spiritual with the science thing. Mm-hmm. But on there, he wrote something. He had something come up on a projector screen. It was just a sentence, and he was like, just say this, in your head. And it said, I can hear the voice, talking to me in my head. And, when you say that quietly to yourself, it is super trippy.
Yeah.
Like there's this line of words and a voice, which is like, your voice, I guess, coming in and it's just silent, but it's in your mind. Mm-hmm. And it's the most bizarre, trippy thing ever. When you step back and think about it, it's just this constant thing that is going.
Yeah.
And you can't stop it. And it becomes so overwhelming when you feel like no power over it and you get consumed in it. Mm-hmm. And it gives you anxiety and it stresses you out and it makes you depressed or it makes you feel like crap. And you can reverse it and make you feel better, but it's just weird in general.
Yeah, the mind is it's a very crazy what it can do. It can harm us or it can help us. And the cool thing about the mind is that it's, neurologists call it neuroplasticity. So you can actually train your mind. It's like Play-Doh. That you can actually heal it. You can actually fix it. So
rewire it.
Rewire it, exactly.
It is,
yeah, rewiring it. It's like a computer program. Like, you can upgrade your software.
Mm-hmm.
That Dharma oftentimes talks about how, like, relates our body to a computer. Always. It's like, you need a new iPhone. Like, just upgrade it like you would. Yeah, you need an update. But yeah, it's so multifaceted. And to understand... A lot of the time, when I was younger, I remember that all of these feelings that I was feeling, being empathetic, like some of the stuff that I was thinking about wasn't my stuff. Wasn't mine. Like, that's not my idea of wanting to do this thing. Like, that's someone else's idea. Like, going drinking wasn't my idea. I just, went along with it because I wanted to be around people. Mm-hmm. Right? But then when I come into this space of fully accepting myself in my body, and that was through the yoga practice that I really am able to do that, the things that other people desire for me, they're not mine. And you can say no. There's a really big power in saying no.
Oh, it's so healthy to learn to say that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a struggle to learn how to say no. But that's so crazy. How I was just thinking the other day about how there's not only that, because it kind of go back to living our own truth, to bring it back to that a little bit. There's just two voices almost in my head. There's the one that says something, and then there's the judger of what I'm saying. And when I started paying attention to that voice that is judging the other words that are going on in my head, I started realizing how much I say things and think things, and I don't really even believe it. Mm-hmm. For, even with smoking. I'm going to go have a cigarette. It's I know this is terrible for me. Why am I going to do this? To have a little social time with a couple guys and talk, and it's stupid. I shouldn't be smoking cigarettes. It's terrible for me. And I've started going with this when I have those two voices connect, if this makes any sense. The judger and what I'm saying agree with each other. I'm finally living in a truth. Mm. And I found that's how I check myself. Every drug addict will tell you they're good at manipulating, but I have an extra special talent for it, where I can sneakily, it's hard to know if I'm manipulating you or not. So people who know I'm a manipulator sometimes still don't know I'm manipulating. Mm-hmm. And I find myself trying to do that. And I've learned I'll say something and then this other voice will be well, you don't really believe that. That's not really true. Why are you doing this? What do you want from this person? Or blah, blah, blah. And I've learned to really just kind of get those voices to coincide with each other in order to continuously live in truth. But it's such a crazy thing how much we do things that aren't our own, that we do them just to fit in or just to be around, like you said, to be around people so we're not alone. And it's amazing when you look at society, how much we all do that continuously.
And a lot of the times it comes from overstimulation. I feel like that, we're either too excited because we're on too much coffee or, all of the signs that we see are, the marketing schemes and things of big companies are made specifically to get your attention. So we're in this space constantly of having our mind open and our senses always open and grabbing for the next fix or grabbing for the next thing, you know, over shopping, doing whatever. Like, oh, I need that. Like someone's telling me I need it, so I need it. Like that's the great thing about marketing. That's what they do. They literally put an idea in your mind that you need something and you go out and buy it.
You go out and do it, yeah.
And you go out and do it. But again, for the power of saying no, but the overstimuli part is yoga really helps calm your nervous system so that, you know, you're in a space of a balanced neurological pathway that can help you make the right decisions, of giving yourself a space. Like taking a breath before you have to make a decision makes a huge difference.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Like, just like, all right, wait a minute. Like, if you've ever noticed when you're super busy, you're constantly going. Someone asks you something, you're like, yeah, whatever. You're like made a commitment to doing something that you don't even know what you said yes to. Right? You don't even know what you said yes to. And then, but if you literally take a moment and you're like, hold on a second, I can't focus right now. Let me take a breath and literally take a big breath and big breath out and then be like, okay, I'm sorry, what did you say? And give yourself an opportunity of settling into what it is you're actually listening to. How does it feel? How does that question, how does this, you know, whatever it is, feel for you? And if it feels wrong, then don't do it. You know, that's the biggest thing. Like, a lot of people want to be liked. Like, that's also a thing, too, is people act out because they want attention, things like that. And
people say yes all the time.
People say yes because, you know, I was a yes person for most of my life. Probably up until I was like 28 years old. I was like, yep, sure, yeah. Like, I only said yes. And now I'm like, I'm in this opportunity of saying no. There's tons of opportunities for me to be out here and share and go to different places, but I don't want to run on fumes. I want to show up to a place, you know, full of gas, being authentic to who I am, not tired and annoyed that I have to be somewhere because this is this obligation that I said yes to, but I didn't really want to say yes to because I was overstimulated and I thought too quick and I just said yes. So really giving ourselves an opportunity of turning our senses off, which is, you know, meditation is a great way of turning your senses off, turning it inward. Yoga Nidra is a good way of turning it off. It's a form of like yogic sleep. And yeah, so that's another way, like through the yoga practice. It's not just moving your body. It's a lot of things. It's breathing consciously, meditating, calming the mind, turning the senses off, being still, and just listening to what's really, 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 really inside. And it's usually that quiet little space, so quiet that you can barely even hear it.
I also find if you're saying yes all the time, you become very resentful towards so many people for no reason,
right?
Because you made a commitment you didn't want to make. So that's extremely important to do, to be able to give yourself moments. Even I found, even if it can only be 10 minutes, or at least start with that. Because I've found now that I started with 10 minutes a day of meditating, that like I can't wait to do my half hour or 45 minutes or whatever it is. As much as I have been inconsistently meditating probably the last couple of weeks, it's something that you just start to like look forward to and love. And I mean, even with this podcast, I've had to make sure, okay, it's okay to stop, and it's okay to stop and meditate, or even it's okay to stop and watch something on TV for an hour. Because if anybody's like me, I tend to, when I'm in something and I need to get stuff done, and that list of things I need to get done is never going to end. It's always going to be there. I tend to, anytime I have any downtime or relaxed time, I get like anxious. Like, you're supposed to be working, you're lazy, and here comes that voice again.
Yeah.
To tell you different things. But it's so important, because if you don't do that, again, resentments, whatever it may be, is going to come up.
Yeah, you burn yourself out, and then you find yourself in this path of, oh shit, how did I get back here? I'm in this process of, this past year for me, I don't know how it got so bad, but it got bad in a way that I was saying yes to everything. I was just feeling super awful. I started eating bad. I gained like 40 pounds. I'm the heaviest I've ever been ever. And I just feel super dense and gross. And I just don't feel good. So it literally took me to have a spinal injury for me to slow down my life and to take a moment to reset. Okay, what's important? What do you need to take out of your life? What do you need to do? You need to show up to yourself first, and then you can show up to everybody else. But yourself is the most important part. And it's okay to say no. And it's also put me on this path of what we say, getting a new iPhone again, taking from August until November, I couldn't move. I couldn't do anything. I couldn't, do
Just
physical.
this past year that happened?
Yeah, I couldn't do any like physical activity. And so now I'm like in this space of like, okay, now I'm going to continue to show up for myself. And your body will respond to what it is that you feel inside of yourself. And it will do what you know is true to happen, but you're not listening. And your body will hold on to something. And like, literally, it's so intelligent that it'll be like, okay, nope. All right, you know that you're not supposed to be doing this, but we're going to make you do it anyway. We're going to force you to do it, And yeah, it's just like really powerful, but you can also heal yourself. You can also, there's always an opportunity to restart. Every moment is an opportunity to restart. If you like find yourself like, oh, whoa, I'm going, spiraling backwards. My chiropractor has a note in his office that I saw the other day, and it said it is easier to stay well than it is to get well. And that like hit me really hard because a lot of the times we're in this process of like underneath the 8 ball, right? We're like trying to continue to push this boulder up a hill, and it's like you feel like it's never going to stop. But what if we just like walked up and stood on top of it and just stayed there, stayed in a space of being well and taking care of ourselves.
It is, yeah, much easier to live healthy as opposed to waiting till your body is like, all right, you're done, and now you have to get better. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a great point. Something I should write down and have hanging up on my wall.
Well, now you have it on record,
yes.
so you can listen to it.
I can edit it and put it in a loop as my phone alarm or something to go off every half hour.
Yeah, right.
So are you still running like your own yoga on Abbott Road? Or
No, I'm not there. That was one of the things that, this year I was like, okay, nope, this is not, it just didn't happen at the right time. Timing, like they say, is everything. And so no, I gave that up, but I am still teaching. I'm teaching at a place in East Aurora called Creative Wellness.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm there like 3 days a week, and I do some workshops, like healthy food workshops, and how to get, how to understand your body better. I just did a workshop yesterday on that.
So do you teach people like movement. How to cook, or just better ways to eat?
No, we do like a live demo cooking workshop.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, so I'm going to have a couple more of those coming up.
When are those?
I don't know the exact dates yet. Yeah, but when I do, I can send them over to you. Yeah, so I do that, and then I'm at a restaurant making pastries, which is kind of funny. It's like, here's your sugar, but also come see me for yoga, right?
What restaurant are you at?
I'm at Debutsu.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so I'm there, and then, just this is like what feeds my soul, is to share, my journey and continue to do the work on myself and share whatever, the process is, and hold space for other people that are going through the same or similar sorts of things,
So what do you, food-wise, this is a very vague question, but what would you recommend as far as somebody eating who, say for instance, that is in recovery, is done with drugs, and wants to start feeling better with the way they eat?
Yeah, I would say add in some vitamin B. Vitamin B is really good to just restart your system back up again. Also, eat as many green foods as possible. Especially in Buffalo, we eat a lot of brown. Everything is brown. Do. Everything is brown. Someone was making fun of me the other day. They're like, you and your color brown. I was like, well, it is. You eat French fries and chicken wings and chicken fingers and subs, and everything's brown. Yeah. So I would say implementing more green food, more color. Yes. Eat the rainbow. Less grains too. Try to limit sugar intake. I know that's difficult, but as much as possible.
As I have a cherry Coke over here.
Yeah. Well, we all have our little indulgences here and there. I like cookies, so I eat cookies. Yeah, but try to limit. I would just say eat the colors of the rainbow. That's the most important thing. Try not to overcook your food. Lay off of like super fried, like the fried stuff.
Oh yeah.
Dharma says if you eat fried food, you're gonna feel fried. So eat as fresh as possible. And, there's lots of people on the internet. We live in the age of information, so there's tons of information. Lots of different people that eat different ways, that have healed themselves from different ailments and things like that. So Medical Medium is one of them. He's really popular right now, of getting rid of different diseases in the body. Like, there's people who are vegan, there's people who are raw. I don't necessarily subscribe to one form of diet, if you will, but it's the same thing. Like, eat what works best for you, but try to eat as many whole, real foods as you can.
Again, it's analogous to how everybody has a different path on recovery. Mm-hmm. We're all different physiologically. Our body responds to different diets better. Mm-hmm. But obviously there is those things to stay away from. Like, eating fried foods and expecting your body to feel better is probably ridiculous.
Eating fried foods and expecting a six-pack is not
going to work out.
And moving your body too. That's the biggest thing. Circulating your energy through your body. You have to move your body at least 20 minutes a day. Mm-hmm. It's not that hard. You don't have to do anything crazy. Just be rolling your shoulders or, just doing jumping jacks, jumping rope, taking a walk, getting outside.
Is
great. So it feels so good. Even in the winter, put on some gloves, put on boots, just take a walk. Sometimes it feels really nice to feel the cold air against your face and the snow crunching against the floor of your boots. But
I know I didn't read the article. I don't even know how true. It might have been like a little joke thing, but it said like over in Europe somewhere, like doctors are now prescribing their patients outside time. Mm-hmm. Like, here, you're prescribed to take 3 walks a day and like really writing something down and handing it to them. But whether that's an actual fact or not, it's so true. Just like getting outside and taking a walk.
Yeah. I mean, I went to a new doctor in April of last year and she literally prescribed me eat more plants.
Yeah.
She told me, she was like, eat more plants because, we all have anyone that lives in Buffalo has seasonal depression. Mm-hmm. Seasonal depression spirals a lot of different things, brings our energy low. So vitamin D also. So if you need to take vitamin D supplements, like there's tons over the counter. But yeah, getting outside, like even though it is cold out, like allowing the sun, we don't get a lot of sunlight here, just allow the sun to like hit your face a little bit.
It's been nice the last few days. Yeah. I feel like we've had more sunshine.
More sun than normal.
I love when I got to wear my sunglasses in winter.
Yeah, right? I know.
It's a rarity.
It is a rarity. Yeah.
It is nice. But I found even when don't feel like taking a walk and I'm being lazy and Christine was like, come on, let's walk the dog or whatever. I mean, usually 5-10 minutes into that walk, I'm so thankful. She bugged me to do it.
Right.
Because I feel so much better, yeah.
It's usually the things that you resist
that are best for you.
Like I had started boxing to rehab my spine also. And so the other day I was like, oh, I like bought all this paint. I really want to like paint my dresser. And like, but my body was screaming at me, like, you need to go and work out. Like you have to move your stuff around and like go and work out. You need to strengthen your back. And like the paint will be there when you come back home. But like the boxing class, you'll have to wait 3 days to go to another boxing class. So I ended up getting up and going and it felt so good. And like I get in the car, I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm so grateful that I actually ended up going to do that because I'm like, I don't know, I just felt better. I had more energy to go home and actually paint. Like usually I would just go to sleep, like let me paint and then go right to bed. And then you feel bad about yourself. Like why do we self-sabotage?
Always. Oh, we do it all the time. Always doing that to ourselves.
So, yeah, like cultivating the discipline within us. In yoga, we call that tapas. Like there's a discipline. What is the fire? What's that fire that makes you keep going? Like what is it that keeps you waking up in the morning and creating that discipline, showing up and doing it?
Cultivating is such a powerful word. Yeah. Mm-hmm. It's huge.
Yeah. Tend your garden.
Tend your garden. Oh, I can't wait to garden again this year. I missed that so much last year.
Yeah.
Pruning. For some reason, I think I'm the only person on earth who likes pruning. Rose bushes. I love doing it. It's so therapeutic for me.
It's so funny.
I miss... Christine always makes fun of me, too, because we have a magnolia tree. A white magnolia tree in our backyard. Mm-hmm. And probably be usually April, end of April, beginning of May. It's in full bloom. You can smell it throughout the whole house. And... she always tells me I'm a weirdo with the tree. But I love it. I love doing the pruning.
Yeah. Awesome.
Well, Sikhona.
Yeah.
Thank you for coming on.
Yeah. Thanks for having me. This was fun.
Every time I do a podcast, I look over at the time and I'm like, there's no way it's been an hour almost. It's crazy how fast it goes.
Yeah.
I love doing this.
Yeah. It's awesome.
So, yeah. Thanks for showing up.
Yeah. Thanks for having me here.
You have to give me the dates and your information of your cooking stuff. I'll put it up with the podcast on the description.
Sounds good.
So, awesome. All right. All right, everybody. Thanks for listening. I'll talk to you later. All right, guys. Thank you for listening. As I said in the beginning, this was a great episode, so hope you enjoyed as much as I did. If you are wondering, once again, why there's not music, I realized the royalty-free site that I was getting music from has down in the bottom of the website that you cannot use this music for podcasts or radio shows. So I had to stop using that. So I either got to find another website or just write my own song. Or if anybody who listens to this wants to write their own song for the show, that would be pretty badass, actually. Again, thanks for listening. Room9podcast.com, Facebook, Room9 Podcast, Twitter, Instagram at Room9 Podcast. What else? That's it. Check out our blog on our website. Our support page is up still. It's not going to go anywhere. Our contact page is up still. That's also not going to go anywhere. So get on there and fill out a form so you can stay up to date with all the happenings at Room 9. I love you guys. Thank you, as always, for everything you do for this podcast. All right. Have a great week, and I will talk to you next week, Monday.